What is up? This is Basketball Island. We're 4 days into the playoffs, so let's overreact to everything. And let's start with Mavs clips because I don't know who has the advantage right now. Like, after what we saw Tuesday night, this thing could go either way.
Yeah, this is a heavyweight fight, man. This is why this was billed as, the trilogy between these two teams, and it's playing out that way. Now, the Mavs, they came out very flat in game one. It's kind of an embarrassing performance.
That's an understatement.
But they responded. They responded, and they grabbed a win with toughness. Luka pulled the strings. He did what he had to.
Kyrie.
And the defense stood out to me because they locked the Clippers down. They held them to 93 points. Very impressive. A lot of toughness from Doncic, who gets ripped for not really playing D. Kyrie looks like he's bought in defensively, and that's what stood out to me. And right now, if you're saying who has the advantage, I don't know. It's 1-1, but I'd say the Mavs should have, and the odds suggest they do. But this looks like a 7-game series.
Honestly, man, I did not think Dallas could defend the way they did Tuesday night. And if they're a team that can defend like that, I still have questions about guys outside of Kyrie and Luka creating offense.
Sure.
But if they can defend like that, they can make noise.
Hey, Dallas had a sample size of this over an 18-game stretch where they went 16-2 going into the playoffs. They were the number one defense in the entire NBA. You want to talk overreactions? Yeah, after game one, we called Dallas as like the favorite for the series. A lot of people say, yeah, ice cold take, right? Well, guess what? Look, their defense stepped up. Harden's not going to shoot 4 for 4 from 3 to open the game every single game, and that's what happened. Their big three shot 4 for 20 in that game. Dallas's defense, they got some guys on the wings that can really play. The reality is, look, you can say 1-game sample size, but you take the numbers and what they've done over a large period, and you can extrapolate some of that. Dallas was a good defense going into the league. You're a casual if you say they don't have it, because you weren't watching then. Because they clearly brought it on the second half of the season post All-Star break. And they're bringing a lot of that, and it's going to be a rock fight.
Who are you talking to, man?
The only thing I would say, though, is just end of regular season to making that leap to the playoffs are two different things.
Yeah.
I was surprised. Like, that was, like, defense won them that game last night.
So it's not just that, too. It's Luka and Kyrie both playing defense. I believe opponents in game 2 shot 2 of 17 with Luka as the initial defender. Luka Doncic locking guys up. He had a great defense possession on Kawhi Leonard late in that game as well. If him and Kyrie are playing like that defensively and being able to create like they do on offense, these guys are, they're like, you surround them, they'll create shots for you. They'll create shots for themselves. If they're bringing that on defense, to me, Dallas is incredibly dangerous, especially if those guys are buying it on that side of the floor.
Yeah, look, you talked about like some things don't translate when you have, post-trade, post-All-Star break. That's on the offensive end to me. On the defensive end, you're seeing it across all matchups. Every single series is having more defensive intensity. Yep. And what's that leading to? Way more unders, right? So Dallas having this jump on the defensive end, it is transferable. We're seeing it in the flesh. And even in that first game, it's not like they were bad on the defensive end. They just couldn't hit shots, and that's what happened.
Yeah, it's funny how we've spent minutes talking about Dallas's defense when Luka still had a monster stat line offensively and hit what a dagger when he started giving it to the crowd too. Like this is why we love playoffs, right? Like, this is why we watch. It makes it the best.
The Iron Eagle call, like Connor, sound it up, sound up the Iron Eagle call because it's just unreal and like a massive 3.
Doncic 5 to shoot against Harden. Doncic lines it up. It goes.
And with that said, listen, the Clippers, this is all about responses, right? So the Clippers are going to have some counters next game. And Ty Lue's a great playoff coach. So I think the Clippers also did themselves a disservice by how slow they played. Yeah. Very station to station, a lot of dribbling there to the ball. I think they're going to raise the tempo next game. It's going to be a battle, man.
It's 2 words, man. It's Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
So Kawhi came back game 2, didn't look like himself. I think that's fair considering he was off a long layoff. If Kawhi finds himself in this series, I think that's the only chance the Clippers have, quite frankly.
Do we think he finds himself, though? Because, like you said, he did not look himself. Yeah, and we don't even know if he's...
I don't think Ty Lue knows, and you're asking me. Like, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be the same guy. I hope he will, because he's great to watch in the playoffs.
But you're right. I mean, it's his knee is going to be a day-to-day thing where you never know.
He's probably questionable going into Game 3
Look at last year against the Suns. He just exited the series
Yeah.
after game 2
Tragic.
and never returned. So
Tragic.
there's always that risk with Leonard as well, right?
Tragic.
So right now, Mavs. Are we thinking Mavs
Well,
right
they
now?
have home court advantage,
They
technically
should.
speaking.
Feels like they
So-
split the next 2 though.
Yeah.
This has 7
Look,
written all over
we
it.
called it 7 at the
Yeah.
beginning. It's probably gonna go.
It
seven.
depends on Wes's boy, PJ Washington.
Hey, he went off yesterday, man.
I like PJ.
That's-
I
He's
know.
anti-PJ.
I
This is-
can't have that ball in that guy's hand in
He can
clutch
defend,
situations.
Dude, he was
Yes.
probably their third, like in terms of offensively, he was their third best player yesterday, and
Yeah,
that is
no,
what
for sure.
scares me with Dallas.
Can we just say something? Can we
What,
just say
you're going to
something?
say that I'm the only one who actually put a unit on the series going to 7, and you're taking a victory lap on it going 7? Is that what you're going to say?
It's only 1-1.
It's what-
I'm glad I did.
I just
No,
wanna say-
well,
I'm glad you did.
We publicly have money on Dallas. So do you have public money on
You
Dallas?
saw my unit. You saw my
Okay,
unit. Play
perfect.
my
So we have 3
allocation.
of us.
guys got
3 of
money.
us are on the Mavs.
Man,
Okay.
I'm just trying to say, I just love the playoffs so much. I just love
Yeah.
that teams are trying, players are trying, because I think it's becoming abundantly clear. I know this is a take that everyone has. The regular season and the playoffs are 2 different games. In the playoffs, you're allowed to show some gumption, some like toughness. You're allowed to hit people. I just love it. I love when great players try. And I think that's just a reminder every year. We're only like a week into this thing.
Well,
I'm very happy.
Monday night was just like
Oh,
just set Twitter on
legendary.
fire
Oh,
with
yeah.
everything that
God.
was happening. But I think to your point, it's also there's phases to the season, and like in October, November, we all get hyped, but the March to once fantasy finals end, the March to April before we get to playoffs is the worst basketball.
Yeah.
So it's like a switch is just flipped, and that's what makes it.
I think some games are really bad. Like some games that have no
Unwatchable,
are
completely
unwatchable.
unwatchable, a lot of
But
them.
there were some games
meaningful
that meant
games.
something.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're seeing the same level of intensity in those games that we are now.
Yeah.
And to your point, I think that does lend to a lot of games going under.
This is
especially in the
exactly
first half.
This is exactly what I wanted to take. So look, if you looked at the 14 games so far, the under's gone 11-3. But the biggest thing that jumps out, free throw volume was already down pre All-Star break versus post. We heard a lot about Monty McCutcheon saying like they're changing an emphasis in terms of how they're calling a lot of calls on the defensive end or for defensive players. There are 6 less free throws per game right now in the playoffs than there was during the regular season. So you have to factor that in. Both the refs are calling it differently and the intensity on the defensive end for all these teams, including teams that are not traditionally strong, like the Mavericks, they're all bringing it. And so you're seeing it play out in every single series. It's happening.
Not just Magic Cavs.
Or
every
if
other
you're
series.
Scott Foster, you can just change the rules and rob D'Angelo Russell of free throws. Okay, well, so our next series, and I'm just gonna take a giant. We talked about our unit allocation. I'm gonna take a fat L on 2 of mine. The Phoenix Suns. What the hell?
Yeah.
Explain yourselves.
That offense yesterday, for a lot of that second half, was just 4 guys standing around. That is the most stagnant I've seen an playoff offense look in a long time.
Yeah.
They were awful. They look done. They might. I think it's a gentleman's sweep. I think they take one
Wow.
game and then Minnesota takes that in 5.
Yeah,
They look
Wow.
completely done.
Yeah.
Not an overreaction.
Yeah.
I think Phoenix is in trouble, man.
Yeah, I mean, a week ago I came on here and said I love them in 5 or 6 games. Now I come hat in hand begging for forgiveness. I beg for forgiveness because I was duped. I was duped by the Suns. They told us who they were all season, and I didn't listen. And the Wolves told us who they were all season, and I didn't listen. Phoenix just looks overmatched right now. Name an aspect of the game they're being overmatched. Their offense is getting shut down. They're not rebounding. They're not defending well. Name it. Name what they're doing well. They can't generate anything. And you know what? Props to Rudy Gobert, who should be the defensive player of the year, because can we bury this narrative that like he can't stay on the floor against teams who shoot threes? He looks perfectly fine out there on the
He had
perimeter.
2 great plays against Kevin Durant late, where Durant
He's getting out to the
contested
perimeter.
rim.
He's coming up to the level. He's protecting the rim. So you know what? Props to him and props to the Wolves, because they're playing
Rudy
hard.
Gobert, Jaden McDaniels,
Yeah.
Anthony
McDaniels.
Edwards, Nikhil Alexander Walker.
sir.
Like, you watch these guys fly around on defense. Even Towns is trying. Bless his heart, man. He's trying. I know foul trouble again. Like, you know, he's the one reason why I'm a little on the Wolves, just because he's had a shady playoff history. But the defense that these guys play with, the intensity, it's just, and they chip away at you as the game goes along. Like Nikhil, that on-ball defense, he got cooked a couple times by Bradley Beal off ball, but he was given Booker fits, fighting over
The
screens.
intensity is just there all the time.
And listen, man, we're gonna talk about it. I know you guys were publicly on Phoenix. Anthony Edwards, yeah, he didn't shoot the ball well.
Yeah.
He didn't shoot the ball very well, but this guy's making the correct reads. He's letting the game come to him. And you can kind of feel when he wants to take over. Like the crowd gets a little hyped. KD's on him one-on-one. He feeds into it. He's like, I'm going to step back on this guy right now. Like, I love Ant-Man so much. These two-way monsters, I think, just shine in the playoffs.
Yeah,
They shine, man.
Quickly,
Go ahead.
Before, are you gonna have a poster of the Ant-Man KD interaction on your wall at some point in your room? Because
love
those
both
are
guys.
two guys you love. That what an all-time moment that was in Game
Absolutely.
1, man.
I
Just
love
that
Ant-Man.
once again, why we love watching this.
He's my spirit
Yeah,
animal.
look, not an overreaction in this series.
Jimmy.
That I'm really concerned about the margin of error that Phoenix has relative to Minnesota. Minnesota's
Yes.
just getting easier looks. And then the fact that their shot makers are kind of like 50-50 right now, and Minnesota has the advantage when it comes to shot making. They can't win. There's no way Phoenix can
Grayson
win.
Allen's out. Turned
Grayson
ankle.
Allen,
Yeah.
that being out is actually a big
Looked
loss.
rough.
But the other thing that really bothered me in that game, the amount of unforced turnovers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
just like passes just thrown at no
I would-
Dribbling the ball straight out of bounds.
I would argue they were forced.
Yeah.
No, but so
By like the menacing defense.
Okay,
So like, what's going on though? Like, you can't win in a
Yeah,
in
they
a
beat
series
yourself.
like this where Timberwolves clearly have the defensive advantage.
Yes.
You have to be the elite ball handling team, shot making team, and they're not winning any of those battles. That was the only way they're gonna win the series.
So in looking at how this series may play out, so obviously it's back to Phoenix for 2 games. What do we think? I mean, I think the Wolves probably get 1 in Phoenix
Yeah.
and wrap it
We're
up in
looking at
5. That's the way it looks right now. But we saw last year, Phoenix went down 0-2 to Denver.
Came back.
and won both at home. So
But those took very
hot.
unbelievable performances. from Devin
abnormally
Booker.
hot shooting performances.
he
We've
do
referenced
that?
it before. The game where everybody hit. I think it was game 3, where literally every single player hit their own.
So if
What a time.
Yeah, if you're looking at how the series may end, the Wolves are plus 220 to win in 5, which I think feels reasonable.
I like Phoenix in Game 3. I do think
Yeah,
they come back. They're
I
gonna show
think-
some pride.
yeah.
They're gonna show some pride.
Possibly a must win. I mean, it
It is
probably
a
is.
must win.
Yeah,
It's
a must
And
win.
you know what?
Oh,
And
it's a
that
must
sets up the perfect scenario. Like Game 4s are the best. They're the best game of the series usually, just because if it is 2-1, it's pivotal no matter what.
Game 4s and 2-0 series are the best. Game 3s and 1-1 series are the best,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
To
And that's
Hamblon's
this
point
beautiful
about
series.
Ant-Man, though, and Tuesday's game, when the shot wasn't falling, and this is what a superstar will do, he found a way
Yeah.
to take over and put his impact on the game, even when the shot wasn't
Yeah.
falling.
Yes.
And they were like good passes leading to big buckets and defensive intensity.
He's 22 years old, making the right play every single time
Yeah.
down the floor. The defense is shading. He make the right pass. He'll drive into the lane. He'll kick it out for threes. And listen, man, Jaden McDaniels is knocking threes.
Yeah,
He's
Jaden
giving you
McDaniels
25.
getting Phoenix.
He's been the
That's
X
gotta
factor.
crush.
Man, he
That
wasn't there
hurts.
last year in the playoffs, man. Yeah, the
course
guy
not.
has, he punched something, a foreign object, broke
punch
his
the
hand.
wall,
That's a big factor.
Punched the wall. He comes in now. That defense is smothering, and if he's giving you anything on offense, like Booker had him a couple times, he's finishing at the rim. He's knocking down threes. He's shooting 35% from 3 this year. Last year he was at 40%. If he can give you something similar to that on catch and shoots, on top of his defense, oh my goodness.
I'll say this: you kind of just yada yada him punching a wall. If any of the 4 of us is most likely to break their hand punching a wall, like come on, we're not. You're minus 600. Like FanDuel will probably take it off the board.
Especially after last Monday's Bricklayer game
Now,
where we got smoked by 30.
I got one question. Sorry, go ahead. Make your point.
Oh,
Make
I
your
was just
question.
gonna say, when we did the tier list, I did vouch for Ant to be higher.
Yeah.
And it was met with deaf ears. So
I'm glad you
Get
did.
it.
Glad I did.
Glad you did.
Glad you did.
Here's my one question, and I'll say this: like we acknowledge me and Fab were very loud wrong on Phoenix.
Me
yet,
too.
not
Hey,
yet,
I
not
was
yet.
too. I was too.
Minnesota kind of.
I still like you
I feel
guys.
like Minnesota threw us off the scent the way the year ended in terms of the Towns injury and then coming back, and it kind of just like I wasn't really sure. And here's my question: did the Towns injury actually help their ceiling as to what they are? Because the defense got much better with Towns out, and now he sort of has to jump in, and all of these players are sort of at that high level, and he kind of maybe has to more fit in.
It's twofold, right? I think it helps their defensive ceiling, no doubt. I think Towns is pretty glaring, like the weak point on their defense. However, if he can get back his offense, if he can shoot threes from a foot behind the line, these 25-footers that he can just kind of, keep the defense honest. Because against the Wolves, I think you can pack the paint a little bit. You can force Ant-Man to be a playmaker, and then you rely on guys to hit open shots. Towns should be able to hit these open shots. Self-proclaimed best big man shooter of all time. Like, if he gets back to that offensively, it unlocks something for them. However, on defense, I think he will always be the weak link. So I think their defensive ceiling increases.
You can have one weak link though if you have an anchor like Gobert and everybody else.
It helps that you're 6'11" and being a weak link. If you're 6'2" and a weak link, that's a problem. So I think he'll have size.
I'll flag one thing for Phoenix. Okay, so what I said earlier, I said it's got to be a must win. Guaranteed win is they got to take more 3-pointers.
That's a good point.
Clear and simple. You're talking about Gobert anchoring the paint. Phoenix is dead last in the NBA right now in 3-point attempts. So if they don't change that, this series is over. They got to fire from 3, even with Grayson Allen out of the lineup. They still got to do it.
Eric Gordon, baby.
All right, he was the only one who kind of looked alive yesterday. The only guy you could count on is Eric Gordon. That's a problem.
Except he did one thing that I really, really hate, and I know this was mentioned on Twitter as well, where it's like, you try to protect your percentages in the playoffs, dude. If the quarter or the half is winding down, there's 2 seconds left. Take the heat from 3 quarters.
Norm Powell did that in the Clippers game also. It's like, what are you guys worried about?
These are red flags.
Dinwiddie did that.
I don't like it. Shoot the damn ball, please.
All right, now our last series we got to talk about, the other game, the final game Friday, and one we all were
Pacers.
Yeah, Pacers Bucks, like 2 very, very different games, and I don't even think, I said this before, I don't think Giannis is coming back. So
even if he does, like, it's a calf strain, dude. Like, that's a catastrophic injury for a player. It just is.
Which is why I don't think there's any chance he's coming back.
I thought the Bucks were frauds, even with Giannis. To me,
I mean, we all said
we
that.
all did.
we all said it.
Let's be clear about that.
We've been saying it. I think, to me, what shocked me so much about Game 1 is that the Pacers did not have their identity. They came in flat, nervous. I don't know what it was. Rick Carlisle, like, playing these all bench lineups.
Yeah, they played 11 players, and they were not playing at the same
playoffs,
pace that they play
man.
out all
You
year.
gotta stagger. You gotta stagger these guys. And I think we need to give. So, we'll give some flowers to Pascal Siakam, who's been an absolute monster in 2 games. Tyrese Halliburton, I think he's finding.
He was better last night. He was much better last night.
He needs to shoot the ball more, and if those threes aren't falling, like, when he's taking those 25-footers off the dribble, that's where he's at his best. If that shot's not there for him, or he's uncomfortable, take some mid-rangers. Come in, shoot with confidence. That unlocks a lot of what Indy does. And I want to give some love to my boy Andrew Nembhard.
Oh, he's looked great.
Aurora's finest.
Dame gave him 35 in the first half of Game 1. He gave him 35, and then Dame ended up scoring 0 in the second half. That's fine. He never backed down.
Yeah.
And to me, that kind of spirit, that resonates. Nembhard was not afraid. A couple moments where they're shoving back and forth, him and Dame. He gets up in his face. I love that intensity, and I love that kind of defense at the head of the snake.
That's
the point
precisely the difference between Game 1 and Game 2. Like, Dame was walking all over them, right? In Game 1, and that experience, like, you could see, it's like, Jared Allen, the lights were a little too bright, right? Like, that's what you felt from the Pacers, right? And look at who's the one guy in Indiana that's stepping up for them, the guy that's been in that moment before, and it's the same for the Bucks right now. Dame's been in this spot multiple times, right? So it's on the other guys like Nembhard, like Neesmith, for these guys that have never been in the spotlight to finally get the cobwebs out, get in there, and, like, if you can't bring it on the offensive end, they missed the first 13 threes in that first game. Bring it on the defensive end. Yeah. Give it to Dame like the way they did. So it's much improved.
Pacers need to push the gas. It's clear and simple. They play with tempo. The Bucks can't keep up. The Bucks
second oldest team?
Bucks don't have. They're old. They don't have the perimeter defense. They don't have the horses to run a track meet with Indy. So if Indy's dictating the style of play, I like their chances. However, there is still a lot of inexperience on that team that could rear its ugly head as things get a little tougher, games get a little more tense. We'll see. They are going back home now. It's still a dead heat as to how this series goes.
Look, the reason why I picked this series when we were going through this in the beginning, I like the 3-point variance in favor of the Pacers, right? Yeah. The problem is Dame can't miss a shot right now. Dame's hitting every single tough step back
in the first half.
Okay, in the first half, but that's what the difference was between Game 1 and Game 2. The Pacers missed every single open wide three that they had. In Game 2, where they shoot 46% from deep, that's gonna happen when that's the identity of your offense. Now they get to go home if they can push the tempo, it probably is going to lead to them have even more open threes. Now, whether they hit them or not, we'll see. But that's going to be the difference, and I just think they can carry that through in this series.
I got faith in Halliburton too, man. I still think
so.
he can get to the level that he was at to start the year. You know, people were talking about him as like what, top 5, top 10 player. The way he was playing,
Yeah, like up
the
until
in-season
December,
tournament
yeah.
run. Oh my
MVP
goodness.
got thrown around a little crazy,
Premature,
but people were
premature.
throwing his name
But,
in
yo,
there.
He
Yeah.
was hitting shots off the dribble, like banging threes, just a spirit that I just loved. And I thought he brought some of that in game 2. If he can get back to anything he was earlier, again, man, the Pacers look at the Bucks and they're not afraid. They are not afraid. Like
not.
Bobby Portis, him and Siakam had beef for a while. They went at each other a little bit. Like we mentioned Siakam, but we need to give this guy some love.
Siakam
man.
was amazing.
Well,
he's the heart and soul of how that team is
he's
going to win.
man, oh, man.
He's leading. He's early, but he's leading the playoffs in scoring.
He did everything.
He's number 1. He's what is it, 37 a game?
Spot up threes,
Yeah.
mid-range, defense. Like no one on the Bucks can defend him, quite frankly. Like, you know, that's where Giannis comes in handy, right? Like they need an athletic wing guy who can defend him. Middleton's old, Portis can't defend. You know, Pat Connaughton's kind of fallen off the face of the earth.
Pat Bev's out there doing cardio, clapping in people's faces.
My Bev, great
Sure, man.
podcaster.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you
Do you want him to be taking a lot of threes? Probably not.
No.
Yeah, shout out to Siakam. He is Indiana's safety net. Look, their offense is all about hitting three-pointers. When the threes aren't falling, what's their default? They go right back
Yeah,
to
Siakam
Pascal.
create, yeah.
Pascal's the only guy out there creating his own shot. And look, I like Halliburton as well. He's not doing any shot creation like Pascal is. Pascal's the only guy doing it.
I mean, I think game 3, huge game in that series. I like the Pacers. I think they found something in that game 2. Going to your opponent's barn and blowing them out like that, that's some toughness. And you know, while we're at the end, like as we wind down here, let's give some love to some Canadians. All right, we need to give some love to not only
Oh, it's been a good
Man,
first
I
4 days.
love it.
So who?
Well,
hold
Murray's
on.
got the moment of the playoffs. by
Of course,
far.
of course.
We're going down the list here, man. Like Nemhard for Indiana, monster, two-way monster, especially in game 2. Nikhil Alexander-Walker,
He's looked really good.
huge game 1.
good.
Defensively, man, just
Couldn't hit his 2 threes last night, though.
Nice.
okay.
Shout
Okay,
out, shout
flying
out.
around on defense, flying around. Shea Alexander coming off a game winner against the
Yeah.
Pelicans. Jamal Murray, mental giant, coming off that unbelievably poor shooting performance in the first 3 quarters of game 2. Comes out in the 4th, hits one of the greatest
And you know
buzzer
that, it wasn't
beaters.
just the buzzer beater. Right the possession before that,
man.
massive shot.
Murray makes a move. Denzel. The Nuggets have won.
Just found his groove. Like the perimeter defense that Team Canada could see. I know I'm going off.
You
the
didn't even
line.
mention Dort. You didn't even
Lou
mention Lou
Dort,
Dort.
like Lou
Who's
Dort
killing
shutting
it.
down Brandon
He's
Ingram.
killing
Oh
it.
my, Dylan Brooks, who's not even in the playoffs. Like I'm
Hey,
we're so encouraged.
calm that
Yeah,
down.
relax.
a little bit, all right?
Encouraged
Now
by-
you gotta take it down a notch.
Leo Routens, who no longer plays. You know.
Yo,
Tristan Thompson yelling so hard.
Shout
from the
out to
bench.
Canada,
Woo.
man. Shout out to these guys who are like rising to the occasion, the perimeter two-way monsters that are kind of developing here, and it's coming to fruition in the playoffs.
You know what? I just
love
want to
it.
back to that Murray buzzer beater, just sticking the dagger in the Lakers, just. And then seeing AD just like sulking in the press conference.
Yeah.
LeBron's crying about the
Cowardly.
refs after the game.
Jamal Murray hit a
Russell
shot.
Is tweeting about calls. These guys are like,
Hold on. What?
no, what?
Russell
What?
He got hit in the head.
You blew a
I know.
20-point lead.
Yes, okay,
You're
okay.
crying about a play from.
Sure, but how did that get reversed? We argued about this over group chat. I'm like, there's no way that challenge
Didn't
gets
look like a
reversed.
foul to me.
Toughen
He
up.
got smashed in the head. Come on,
After
man.
the play,
Toughen up, man.
Yeah.
follow
It's the
through.
playoffs.
Yeah.
Scott
Toughen
Foster
up.
changed the rules. Cool.
And Jokic is freaking awesome.
You know what's and I you know
So
what
good.
you know what really sucks about that though is like LA takes that game. I think we got a series, and now it's gonna be a sweep. This podcast was all about us overreacting, and I'm overreacting. The Lakers are done. They're cooked. You disagree? Hit me up in the comments.